Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Narcissistic Parents and Family. The journey towards clarity about dealing with impossible people. I worked with my mother for a short time. The entire experience was fine until the very end. We worked well together, spent time together with no drama or problems until I decided to leave. I had been running a fairly successful computer business for quite a while and was doing very well. I was offered a long term job from our mutual employer and thought I may turn it down due to the direction I was headed with my career. I was in the process of thinking about it and had decided it would be better if I keep my current job. I got a late call from my father the day before I would announce it. He berated me and told me if I did not take the job, I'd be ruining my son's life. He had only caught wind that I had the job offer. I never had a conversation with him about it. I told him to never speak to me in that fashion again and instantly changed my mind. It was apparent that there was more going on than I was aware of, and it would be healthy for me to make a separation from my parents because we had obviously become too intertwined. If my father would have called me and had an adult conversation with me about the situation, it may have turned out differently. My mother was upset about it, and she told me she was ashamed of me for doing it. That comment hurt me deeply, especially since she had eventually decided to leave her job there for her own reasons, and she left without any of her family guilting her for making a personal decision. No one told her they were ashamed, and everyone respected her decision, whatever it would be. Once again, I was treated like a child and reprimanded like one when I did not follow the path that someone else had laid out for me. I was in my mid-20s by that point. It would have been pleasing to have my parents back me up or respect decisions that I made, but it was always the opposite. I am aware that you partially blame my wife for our absence. Let it be known that this was my decision, and it became our decision together after discussing the situation. I have no problem whatsoever shouldering all the blame for leaving, as it was something that needed to be done to preserve my immediate family. Competing with my mother and father constantly was driving my wife and I apart. We became aware of this fact, and our entire family made this decision together. We always stand united. My wife has bent over backwards to make you both happy, even though she was not required to do it. She did it because she thought it was the right thing to do and to make me happy. She has cooked for you, cleaned your house, waited hand and foot on my mother on the occasions that we took vacations, rubbed her feet on many different occasions, and cut my father's hair, all the things one does in a family. She does not deserve to be treated with disrespect, and she was always respectful of you both. She took time out of her schedule to drive my mother to Michigan to see her sick sister, came back home, and returned to Michigan to pick my mother up. That's just one thing that she should have not had to do, but she did it anyway out of her sense of responsibility. I think this illustrates the length that she was willing to go to in order to do her part for the family. Unfortunately, she will never go to those lengths again. Blaming her for leaving when she had every right to do so is extremely disrespectful, and you both should be ashamed of yourselves for ever treating her this way. Keep in mind when you disrespect her son or husband, you're also disrespecting her. You both do not seem to regard her as a person or a factor in anything. You should watch yourself because she can have a pretty wicked tongue when she's let off the chain. It's turning out to be more clear every day that you are not the only ones who can behave as they please. That is always just so poignant, when I read it, of course, but when everybody else reads it, it could be that you dealt with something similar or not. It's always so complicated when it comes to family dynamics that it's hard, for two people to really agree on something being exactly the same, but they can always be similar. Yeah, I did work with my mother, and she was in a different part of, a different department, I guess, at a school district, and we did good, like I said, and I mean, my mother always really did get along pretty well, and there was a lot of manipulation underneath that I found out in the past, and it did disintegrate over time. When I was a kid, it was much better. But when I got to be an adult, it really started to deteriorate. I really couldn't tell you exactly why that is. It just happened. I think just enough time goes by and you just rub each other the wrong way for long enough, and it just gets to where you're just hanging around each other and you really shouldn't. You just kind of hate each other, but you still subject each other, yourselves to each other. I'm sure that I was an asshole in a lot of different situations that we were in. And that's the difference between my parents and me. If I'm an asshole, I'm very aware of it, and I have no problem admitting it and shouldering like blame on, for two people in a situation, even if I'm not responsible for it. I got no problem. It's not a big deal. Confrontations and feeling bad. Maybe it's because I was always made to feel guilty about everything when I was young. It makes me so comfortable with it. Think about that. Yeah, I was offered the job by them. I was actually a contractor, and I was making, I don't know, like $50 an hour. It was great for, gosh, it was like 2003. And they wanted to hire me on as an employee because that would save them money. And everybody thought I was crazy for. Actually, I did not turn that job down. I was talking about turning it down because I made more being a contractor, because I made 50. I actually bid that job low. So I just decided and then I said, no, I'm probably going to go and take it because there were benefits. There were actually insurance benefits. It was with the school. And then Dad just called, and he did that stuff out of the blue. And he just got in a bad mood one night and figured he'd call me up. I'd already had a son. My son was 3 years old by then. Just calling me up and crossing boundaries. And, I went through this nose-to-nose thing with him again and told him to not talk to me that way. And then what was really funny about that is I woke up the next day and I left. I went because I had more work. I didn't have to worry about the money. And I walked away from the contract the next day. And my father actually called me the next day, and his attitude was totally different. He was like, oh, so you went ahead and left that job, huh? Crazy person. He didn't call me and talk to me. He never looked at me as an equal. I don't think Dad looked at anybody as an equal. He when I was a kid, of course, you don't look at your kids like they're necessarily equals, but he never talked to me with any respect ever. Never talked to my wife with any respect. My dad was a very rude guy. I wish you all could have known him. Mom, her saying that thing about being ashamed of me for doing it, that's just the way she was. She would hem-haw and pout about shit, and then you would feel bad, and you'd feel guilty, and you'd do what she said. The only thing about that's not too bad of a behavior really, but the thing about Mom is that she would never one time would she not do that. She always won. You always had to bend for her. I would say things to her even when I was a kid, like, Mom, will you just bend for me for a second? And she'd say no. That's the way they were. Treated like a child all the way up till my adult. I heard my dad say one time he could not help it between me and my sister to look at us like we were very little kids all the time. He did it like this. He said, I see you guys like to hear this, like we're short, like we're young. And that was, it seemed to be like some kind of a delusion at that point when it came to the way that they looked at us. And blaming my wife, yeah, that my mom used to do that. She loved it. Mom's very snide, and she used to make comments like she didn't care about my wife. And, like my wife wrecked her car one time, and Mom said, how was the car? It was always that. I mean, it just sucked with Mom all the time. So, we took vacations again, but just looking back at all of it, it was all just so forced. And when you add my sister into it, like she hated it. Like she'd come to Christmases and stuff, and she would you could tell she did not want to be there. And I'd be trying to get everything going and have fun, but my family just really didn't get along. My wife drove my mother to Michigan. She used to do that stuff all the time. And I actually remember that time they screwed us out of some gas, which they normally didn't screw us monetarily, but we didn't have any, and something got screwed up, and they didn't give her any gas money. So my wife had always done real well at backing me up, and I think the main idea is break the cycle. Don't, do it with your own immediate family. If your family, your parents, or whatever, you grew up, they were bad and they treated you a certain way or they act a certain way, you don't like it, change it with your immediate family. Be straight up. Make decisions together. So you guys have a great day once again, and I shall see you tomorrow for episode 7.